hope you all enjoyed that short break and the poetic cinema. We have a very exciting presentation coming up next. My name is Maxima Khan, and I'm a co-organizer of the Festival, a poet and a teacher. And I'm also an alumna of the community of writers. So it's my great pleasure to introduce this next very special event. The nationally renowned community of writers is celebrating its 50th anniversary with the publication of a beautiful anthology called Why to These Rocks, 50 Years of Poetry with the Community of Writers. And if you don't know, the Community of Writers is one of the most esteemed writing workshops in America, offering workshops in poetry, fiction, and screenwriting. And as I say, it's been my pleasure to be a participant there. Today, we're fortunate to have some of the esteemed poets from the Community of Writers from their 50th anniversary anthology with us today. And because we have quite a number of poets and we want to be able to just listen to them read, we're not going to read their bios. Their bios are up on our festival website, as are links to their books. So without further ado, I want to turn it over to Lisa Alvarez, who is co-director of the Writers' Workshops at the Community of Writers and is the editor of this extraordinary anthology. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you, Maxima, and thanks to Eliza and all the organizers of this great gift of a poetry festival. It's been wonderful to spend the last day and a half with you all. I feel like I am there, and I feel like I am surrounded by poets, which is a wonderful thing. Thank you all for being here. A little bit about us. The Community of Writers was founded in 1969 by novelist Blair Fuller and Oakley Hall. In the 50 years that have followed, poets and writers have gathered in a valley near Lake Tahoe, the valley that is the ancestral home of the Washoe people who for thousands of years lived there from snowmelt through summer, and whose traditions and histories and care we honor. For many of those 50 years during Poetry Week, poets have written a poem each day. This was the vision of longtime poetry director Galway Connell, who believed that poets needed to use their time in the valley to generate new work. It's a practice that was innovative then and is more widespread now. So what happens when poets write poems in a Sierra Valley for 50 years? They write lots of poems. They write poems about many things, of course, the subjects they arrived with, about poetry itself, but they also inevitably write about where they are, that place, that beautiful valley, elevation 6,200 feet, the mountains, the rocks, the trees, the flowers, the birds, the snow in summertime. What they see, what they do. The poets write about how the place stays the same and how it changes through the years as many return time and time again. That is how community between people and place is made. That is how poetry is made. Some of those poems first drafted at the conference, forged in a week around the workshop table and the dinner table, running bases at the famous midweek poetry softball game, or on the nature walks of Shirley Canyon along the shores of the Truckee River and Lake Tahoe, has made its way into this anniversary anthology of over 140 poems. And that, the place, the High Sierra of California, will be the focus of today's reading as both staff poets and participant poets share their poems along with the poems of others. Whether you have been there or not, we hope that these poems will take you there for just a little while. And one day I hope you will join us in this valley. Please, when the world opens up again, show up for a reading, for a talk. show up to write your own poems. And now I am so pleased to introduce someone I first met in that valley when he arrived as a staff poet, and who most recently returned last year when we gathered in our virtual valley, poet Matthew Zapruder. Are you there, Matthew?
Yeah, Lisa, thank you.
Hey.
Good to see you. Good to see everybody. I wish we could all be there together. I was at the festival before, and I really miss seeing you all in person. And of course, look forward to being able to do that again soon. Yeah, I'm so honored to read for this anthology and in support of the community of writers. It's just such a remarkable week, and I'm just so pleased that I've gotten a chance to do it. And writing a poem a day is, of course, a wonderful challenge. And I'm so grateful and resentful every time I get to do it of that task. So I'm going to read one poem of mine and then one poem from the anthology by another poet I adore and revere. And I'll get to that in a minute. But so as you all probably know, the community of writers is not too far from Lake Tahoe. And I'm one of those people who starts like bragging about doing something that I have no actual intention of doing, and then I'm stuck eventually doing it. And in this case, that was swimming in Lake Tahoe, which, you know, as soon as I mentioned it, seemed like a disastrous idea. But the more I said it, the more I realized I would have to do it. And then towards the end of the week, everybody gathers near the lake, and I had to actually do it. And I did. I went in with Bob Haas. And this poem, you know, it was everything I had imagined and colder. And so you know, after that event, that evening, I had to write a poem, and of course, that was the precipitating thought and event of this poem. And it starts with a curse word, so I hope that's okay with everybody. If not, mute me. So this is Poem for Coleridge. Poem for Coleridge. The lake was super fucking cold, and with every smallest increment, got colder. I plunged my head under no sound, not even extreme silentness, no stupid ideas, no words of comfort I should not or not have not said, not my constant, horrible, ungrateful desire to have different form or be done. All this talking, not even breath. Everyone was really gone. There is no word for that X. Under, it outweighs time. Later on shore, wrapped in a white towel and still feeling ridiculous, and also a little secretly proud for having so mortally scared myself. I would say some mystical, inexorable communion feeling toward those ancient blue waters pulled me, meaning I had already forgotten. I was, as always, already talking too much to keep away something numberless. Bob would not get out. And so I was stuck in there because I could not get out before Bob did. That was just not acceptable to me for some reason that I forget. So anyway, he would not get out. And I still hold that against him. So I'm still a little bit cold. So the other poem I'm going to read is, there were so many choices from this amazing book, and I can't recommend it enough. And it is like kind of this great, it's so full of life and dailiness, but also deeper things. And there's just so many choices I could have made. But I wanted to read a poem by, I was torn between reading a poem by Dean Young, which is devoted to Bob. But then ultimately I chose this other poem that I just adore in the book by Major Jackson, my friend Major, called Cries and Whispers, of course, named after the Ingmar Bergman film of 1972, and he mentions Bergman in the poem. So I'll just read it. And anyway, thank you all again. And after me will be the wonderful Patricia Spears Jones. I'm thrilled to be leading up to her. So here's Major's poem, Cries and Whispers. Cries and Whispers. Each day I forget something, yet happy I never forget to wake to the bright corollas of summer mornings. In the jury box of my bed, I listen to the counter arguments of finches and blue jays, cardinals, and the tufted titmice, and the sharp judgment of the crow grow to sweet clamors. In my neighborhood, someone like me is sitting at a kitchen table, taking down notes between bites of granola and gentle sips of oolong tea, and recording the soap opera in the trees. The pen is her large antenna to the mysteries, which come in alternate currents of slapstick and calamity. She writes away her nights of emptiness and boredom. We'd be perfect in a Bergman film, both of us entering into day, seeking the final appearance of things, bumping around like this. A delivery truck backs into a driveway. The streets begin their excited breathing. Thank you for listening. And Patricia, you're next. Hi.
Hello, thank you, Matthew. What a story. What a foolish thing to do. Anyway, but I did one too. I once sang, I enjoyed being a girl, all of the lyrics to Lucille and Galway at the picnic at Lake Tahoe. I think they're still going in heaven going, what the heck? Anyway, uh, I went to the community of writers as a participating uh, poet, and then in 2016, I think I came back as a faculty, and that was such a thrill to be on the other side of that little part of the window there. And I am grateful that I was, and I heard some wonderful poems. And I also am someone who doesn't do well in altitude, and you'll understand that when you hear this poem. And it truly is a poem about place. And I'm also going to be reading a poem by Carrie Ellen McCrae, who I first met when I came there, who told me, and I quote, "Your book will be published," unquote. And within 2 years, the book I was carrying around with me was published. So I thank her to this day for that level of support. And I'm reading C.D. Wright, who, like me, comes from Arkansas. And she is very much missed in the world. And she should still be here, but alas. Lictic, or How Not to See the Strawberry Moon. The poet had too much to drink, and so forgive her this lyric spelled lytic. Lytic are these stars in full array above the myriad evergreens. Oh, how they light the austere lawns of French estates, but why French estates in the Sierra Nevadas? Eyes leap over peaks of these massive hills, searching for clarity, but tongues sing gardens and the genesis of stories. Consider the spirit of summer solstice and gratitude and perplexity. The moon cannot be seen. The sun refuses to set in time enough for the poet to see the large, red, promised moon, the strawberry moon. The poet is perplexed by this seemingly endless daylight, the sun's refusal to surrender tonight. The mountains, these mountains, are as drunk as the poet tonight. The pollinating pine, the restless predators and their prey, like the moon moving where the moon moves, dipping her raiment in red dye. Sun and moon and creatures hunting across mountains, then barking dogs and SUVs populating small segments of wide parking lots. The wind chimes cheer. Who will tell our stories? Who will want to hear about drunken poets? The origin of the strawberry moon. How gardens blossom beneath these stars' intensity. Luminous, light, clarity, clair, clara. O poet's nimble work these bones. Be done unto terra and air, tales composed in patterns of flight and tusk, gold and rubies, pine trees and mountains. Our songs start in exuberance and anxiety. Spirits work our blood, and in the night's darkening air, making bracelets of gemstones and animal bones, culled from blood oaths and rifle butts, and tongues undone by drink and altitude. And indeed, the first day I was at Squaw Valley, excuse me, the not named now Valley, I got very sick from altitude sickness, and then people had to pour water down me. It was hilarious. Not really. Carrie Allen McRae, who passed away, I think, about 10 years or so ago, was just an amazing woman, Black woman whose family was well regarded in the South. The Children's Virginia. Virginia wind says home, screech of the front porch swing, the big oak in the front yard, its swing and singing. Oh, how I love to go up in the swing, up in the sky so high. The seminary across the road in summer, yelling through its empty halls, the big back porch with the long table for summer's meals. Chickens clucking around, pigs in their pens, sad-eyed cow, Mary. The sound the southern flagged on Dermot Hill, under the table, Buster the collie on somebody's feet. Across the road, Mammy Joe's store for sausage-sized sugar cookies after school. White Mrs. Limbaugh, cold lemonade and ginger snaps, sitting in her spot, singing children's songs. Her son Luther there. The down the road shack where the best friends lived. Paper stuffed and cracks, the pot-bellied stove and their mama, collard greens with crumbled cornbread, buttermilk, the children churn. And this final poem is by C.D. Wright, and after I finish, it will be the fabulous Chris Davidson. And this is a perfect poem about the preparation for being in a writer's residency. Obscurity and isolation. The left hand rests on the paper. The hand has entered the frame just above the elbow to reveal a half-rolled sleeve. The other hand is in its service. It holds a foggy glass up to a standing lamp. Motel furniture, motel paneling. From the outside, what light slips through the blind is gray, blue-gray. The phone rings. The hand, conditioned to pick up, hesitates, withdraws before the ringing finally breaks off. Thank you, everyone at the Community of Writers, and I'm so glad to be part of the celebration. Chris Davidson, where are you?
I'm here, so sorry. All right, I needed to unmute myself. Here I am. Thank you, I've never been called fabulous before. That was wonderful. I love it. I just want to thank Lisa and everybody at the festival for including me in this and in this book. I'm really honored to be part of it. This poem that I'm going to read, it's called Leaving the Poets of My Own, and I'm going to read another poem by Lauren K. Aline. But this first poem I wrote, it was the last day of the workshop. I had been camping down by the Truckee all week. It was very cold at night, and I walked up each morning to the valley to print out my poems. And I'd walk back to the camp after dark, staying most evenings after dinner to have some drinks with some friends that I met there at the pub, the little pub in the village. And after a week of this poem kind of summed up some of what I was feeling. I'd never spent so much time with so many poets. And the last morning's workshop, this was the last poem we got to, but we ran out of time to talk about it. And my memory, hope I have this right, is that Robert Haas, who was teaching that workshop, read the poem and then just finished it and said, well, that's a lovely place for us to finish. And so that was it. This was the last poem that ended my experience at the Community of Writers workshop in the summer of 2003. It's called Leaving the Poets. When we part, we reel in our blazing tongues to say our so longs in the plain speech. Some will board jets and be lifted as joy, always darting out of view, briefly lifts the heart. Others will drive, fanning across the geography. I will arrive south out of mountains and cross irrigated plains, descending into a landscape of light and sprawl, hemmed in by the Pacific, beneath an overwhelming humidity of smog and song. In that place where I was raised to see in the future money, how to drive in lanes, to dive beneath waves, holding my breath, to sing without being heard but seen, how to pray, I'll remember, I hope, that for a while I was mainly a pedestrian. I slept among conifers and above a torrent. An animal each morning woke me with a sound like a submerged train. I drank till late with makers of wine, houses, pavilions, battles. No one need know this to say goodbye. As in the story of Jacob in the desert wrestling through the whole night, this parting is not about knowledge. We grapple with true love, then we limp away. When we kiss, our mouths fall one to another like the burning coal the angel touched to the prophet's lips, who then had new news and a voice altered for its articulation. When we kiss with imperfect organs of disclosure, we touch histories. So long. And then the second poem, it's called Love in A Flat by Lauren K. Aline. I don't know Lauren. There's so many wonderful poems in this book, and I just flipped this one and I loved it. It's after Dean Young, who was one of my teachers that week, who I really enjoyed, and has a nice bit of jargon in it, which I love too. And it's about John Coltrane. It was about Dean talking about John Coltrane, I should say. Love in A Flat, after Dean Young. Dean told us a story about Coltrane, how one time in a recording he hit a wrong note, a real clam. And the second take, he hit it again, this time harder, longer. The third time it becomes the heart, the sound all the other notes wrap themselves around, a different understanding of the melody, the song beneath the song, the stubborn beat holding up the heaviness of flesh. Thanks so much. That was fun. It's my pleasure to introduce Christina Hutchins, our next reader.
Thank you. This is a wonderful reading, and it's a joy to be part of it. And this book is just beautiful. There's so much love and generosity in the poems. I had a hard time choosing just one to read after. So this poem is about getting lost on Thursday afternoon of Poetry Week, and it was 2016, and I ended up higher in the High Sierra than I meant to be, and it remains one of the most intense experiences of my life, actually. So I wrote this for Saturday of the Poetry Week, that week. Coming down the mountain. Last night, the Milky Way draped its plush ribbon, random light as ever it does. So often the radiance masked, in this high valley, we are discovered by light, come as if to seek us. What is between you and me? Is it light too? Warmth, voices, legacies of violence, our seeking and being sought for, and the want of that. Sometimes poets, reading each other's poems, pretend the thing between them is only a poem. I felt the turn into 1 o'clock, wind on the 1 o'clock wind on the longest day of the year, frothing of aspen boughs in sun, the seeking wheels of a bicycle under a girl who stood to press harder up the hill, spokes of galaxies glittering. I had wanted to ride the gondola, to hike up for the dip down and sway, cliffs and crevices, a granite face and the shadow of a hand on a page. Maybe I wanted to let the mountain long for me a little, to know brute beauty reaching for me. But I grew lost. I climbed and climbed, up without a trail, feet and hands and bad decisions. Arrived on Broken Arrow, the wrong summit. And trying to descend, there came a cliff. My body bore itself back to the top, and my whole life was alone. Crossing a scree patch, I had set my foot against a weathered log, a stout sea lion. My arms could not have grappled it. A soft kick, tap of the toe, a little human weight, and down it rolled, not stopping. I was clinging to Manzanita, and the big, twice dead thing accelerating down the face of the mountain, bounced and sprung against rock outcroppings and tumbled out of sight. That could have been me. We spin the edge of a galaxy, alive by a necessary search between us, mattering each other forth. But that spinning log, the mountain, impersonal as sea in storm, cared nothing. I ate snow, packed my water bottles with snow. Then there was nowhere else to go. And when I had to put my foot to a bit of unmoored granite and the grus gave way, our steady world could not hold. It was I, the silver log, accelerating, tumbling, loose matter. Don't steal my bones. They are worth nothing to you. A tiny old pine, I rolled into it and I clung. Hours later, descended, I found the trail, and darkness came complete and cold. I sat down on the path and waited. The Milky Way could not find ground amid the pines. But our lamps are stars. How glad. 3 lights jagging among boulders, bobbing through trunks and branches, herald 3 voices shouting my name. How glad I was to see, be sought, to be found, to close my eyes and be embraced. So I'm very grateful to those 3 who found me sitting on the path, and also to Lisa and Brett, who stayed up and hugged me that night. Best hugs of my life. So, and the next morning, Sharon and Bob hugged me, and somehow, I guess when we're not hugging each other, maybe I'm just romanticizing it, but it was very special. Okay, so this I chose by Fernaz Fatima, and it's called Playing Softball After 21 Years. My bones shake themselves out as I take first steps onto the borrowed mountain field. 2 decades after you dragged me to my first game. Linked arm lover under the redwood grove, your gaze clay. I stand at the outfield grass and look at the pines past the line of the fence. I feel tall and steely, closer to 20 than 60. My limbs hold me in place. So young still, my knees aren't creaky. I chase fly balls. I know this feeling won't last. I punch the leather of my glove. I wish you had made 40. 2 other poets in right field, we're stretching the rules, are talking about a form one is experimenting with. I have that prayerful longing to never forget this moment. They're almost as young as we were. Can you come play here? She says, pointing to second. I have no idea what to do. I jog over. You would have been proud too. I am playing softball with the poets. How are you not hanging at this fence laughing when I tap the ball towards third and are on my way to first? I am all grins when my heel hits the rubber. Safe. Your teeth were so big and it's easy to remember. Look at the treetops and see how thin the air is. Watch a hawk on a high current. I was so lucky you loved me. I made it to third, my legs humming. And I think it doesn't matter how this game ends. The runner at first is doubled off because she runs on a fly ball. I am disappointed. But today I see what you saw when you coaxed me to play. I was 24 and my flesh hugged my tendons and my bones and was soaked in what had been coming for what seemed like forever. And my legs held strong and my body unfurled, and the promise you made was that all of it was already in me. You were right. My body is still mine, at least a little longer. And it is back with you, under the evening lights of that city park in late spring, damp air on our necks, and redwood trees in our noses on the drifting breeze. I would like to introduce Francisco Márquez.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you to Lisa for editing the wonderful anthology, and Brett for inviting me, and for the organizers of the Sierra Poetry Festival for putting this space together. Reading with all these poets is a dream. I'm gonna start with a poem of mine. I wrote it for Dean Young's workshop. I wrote it in the little waterfall right behind the ski lodge up the trail. And I was heartsick, and this is the poem that resulted. It's called Self-Portrait as the Falls. Didn't we rush, smooth the stones? Weren't driftwoods home? Weren't horses and blindfolds? Didn't their ears flit at the silence in the changing wind? Weren't children swimming, their mothers alone? Retrievers watching mist rise and gather? What of our snake dreams? Pines uprooted by rain, storms veering our coursing speed. Remember nights used by the moon as her mirror? Or were we witnesses? And I'm going to now read one of my all-time favorite poems. It's by Yusuf Komunyakaa, and who so fantastic teacher and just an inspiration all the time. The poem is called Anodyne, and after me, Shein will be reading. And thank you for listening. Anodyne. I love how it swells into a temple where it is held prisoner, where the god of blame resides. I love slopes and peaks, the secret paths that make me selfish. I love my crooked feet shaped by vanity and work shoes made to outlast belief. The hardness coupling milk it can't fashion. I love the lips, salt and honeycomb on the tongue, the hair holding off rain and snow, the white moons on my fingernails. I love how everything begs blood into song and prayer inside an egg. A ghost hums through my bones like Pan's midnight flute, shaping internal laws beside a troubled river. I love this body, made to weather the storm in the brain, raised out of the deep smell of fish and water hyacinth, out of rapture and the first regret. I love my big hands. I love it clear down to the soft, quick motor of each breath, the liver's 10 kinds of desire, and the kidney's lust for sugar. This skin, this sack of dung and joy, this spleen floating like a compass needle inside nighttime, always divining West Africa's dusty horizon. I love the birthmark posed like a fighting cock on my right shoulder blade. I love this body, this solo and ragtime jubilee behind the left nipple, because I know I was born to wear out at least 100 angels. Thank you.
Beautiful, Francisco. Thank you. And I'd like to thank Lisa Alvarez and everyone who created this gorgeous anthology, and it's wonderful to be a part of it. The title of my poem is Dragonfly. Dragonfly, the mountain I didn't climb. Grilled cheese sandwiches fried in olive oil. Loop of swallow, sun on my black hair as I walk uphill, out of breath, cursing. Binoculars on the table. Stuffed terrier in a basket, no eyes. Empty bottle of organic red wine under a fit of stars. Conversation with housemates about failed Mormons and forgiveness and poets in Nicaragua. Wooden box full of straw hats in the corner. A white butterfly circling a dead tomato plant on the balcony. 2 cardboard coasters that say Berg, Brauerei, Zellerfeld. Money tree shifting, leaning to the left. Cable car crammed with tourists climbing up peak. My dry legs, desire to swim. My mother administering anesthesia to a patient in a hospital somewhere in Apple Valley. 10-pointed crystal hanging on wire, setting fissures of light across arms. Dragonfly knocking against window. And now it is with a deep pleasure to share this poem by Al Young, a poet I so admire. And the title of this poem is In the Sierras for Oakley and Barbara Hall. Way up here where sky comes close to calling all the shots, where photographers, geographers, and gopher-loathing golfers and creature comfort joggers, where bikers, hikers, wrecking crews, and horse riders alike mount slow invasions. Here, where whole fields, whole hills heal, and mountains make big money mean, peace speaks its native tongue. Way up here, where sky comes close, where stakes grow vast, where the last and first run neck and neck, where loveliness lays herself on every line at once. Up here, where far and close dissolve, where the Sierras do not air and terror cheapens. Sleeplessness, like formlessness, must nest at midnight lighted height. Peace gets and takes its chances. And so I'd like to say a few things. While in college, I remember reading Sharon Olds' 1984 collection, The Living and the Dead and the Living, excuse me, and how her brave and moving poetry inspired me to push my own work further. When I attended the workshop in 2002, Sharon was my first instructor, and I had to pinch myself that not only was I going to meet her, but also learn from her. It is now such an honor to introduce Sharon Olds.
Thank you. Such a pleasure to hear you. I could just listen to your beautiful voice all day. Hi, poets. How amazing to be together again. Thanks to everyone who made this possible. I am speaking from the land of the Lenape tribe, the unceded land. And I am reading a poem of mine and a poem of Lucille's. Yes, Lucille's. Seeing this poem of mine, it's like from a long time ago, long time ago, when there seemed to me to be more time. Song before dawn. In the dark, not the full dark, woken by the cold, pulling the covers up around my mouth, making a small cavern of warmth, of living breath, sensing the over-under of my sleep-loosened braids, all my arms and legs tangled around each other. I used to lie on this mountain, and Galway and Lucille were dreaming nearby. I used to put on layers and layers by touch, and despite my fear of being outdoors in the night, as if I were not a person but an occasion for violence, I would go outside, the sky black, as if there had been a God, it might have petted me on the head, like Galway in his scrupulous mercy toward me, like my chivalry toward him. And are confiding in each other like a child in the woods, confiding without language in the needles and cones. In the dusk before first light, above the granite domes, which look from here like peaks, but are the knees and hip bone crests and clavicles, jaws, occipital arches under the mountain's fontanelles. The stars are still just visible and in the binoculars clear and sharp. But despite holding the heavy lenses leaned against the stucco frame, my tremor shows each star swiftly whirling in a white gold ring, like Saturn's, in one direction, then swerving, then the other, then an hourglass, a spiral, a bed spring, the stars sparkler tracing my shaking. And now, in the quietest moment, the voice it took the earth millions of years to speak, the vireo, before first light. When my hands were steady, I would stand at Lucille's shoulder at the lake and softly pluck insects, 9-spotted lady beetle, giant crane flyer, green darner, black snow mosquito off her shoulder, nape, white cap, and blow them out over the glacier blue water toward the place where we're going, one by one, two by two, sometimes many at a time, someday all together as if reunited. And here we have Miss Lucille, whose wisdom and humor, wit, continue to inform us and warm us and accompany us in our lives. Here is one of hers from the book called In an 1844, sorry, I'm gonna start again. Hi, Lucille, we love you. In 1844, explorers John Fremont and Kit Carson discovered Lake Tahoe. In 1841, Washoe children swam like otters in the lake. Their mothers rinsed red beans. In 1842, Washoe warriors began to dream dried bones and hollow reeds. They woke clutching their shields. In 1843, Washoe elders began to speak of grass hunched in fear and thunder sticks over the mountain. In 1844, Fremont and Carson. Thank you, Lucille. So wonderful to see you all. Thank you for being together here today and looking forward to seeing you at altitude. And now, where are you, Max? I'm going to give the screen to Max.
I'm here and I'm gonna
Yay.
pass. Hi, Sharon, and thank
Ah.
you all. That was gorgeous. I'm gonna pass the microphone to Judy Crowe.
Hello. As an alumna of the Community of Writers Workshops, I am so pleased and honored to thank its faculty, staff, poets, and presenters today. You have inspired so many thousands of us over these now 51 years and counting to write and enjoy poetry. You are part of this mountain home, this actual or virtual valley where writers gather. And I encourage everyone watching to learn more about the Community of Writers and to buy this gorgeous anthology and or books by these amazing Community of Writers poets by following the link